So thank you for the opportunity to be here today and to reflect on Chris's powerful thinking and his call to action for those of us spending our days with high school children. He is truly amazing, and it's a joy to follow up. I had not met Chris up until this very moment, but I was able to read his work prior to being here, and I was awe-inspired. I'm humbled to offer just one small reflection from my little corner of the world at Arupe Jesuit High School in Denver. I know that within this room there are well over 450 powerful reflections, so it is truly with humility that I offer up just some of my thinking related to what he's offered this morning. And as you heard, he put forth 4 to 5 different questions, and I'm going to go through them, and I'm just going to try to pinpoint a little bit of what we're doing at Arupe Jesuit, and also just to kind of give you a glimpse into what my thinking is about some of our responsibilities and some of our opportunities, because I do think that this work is full of hope. So again, thank you for letting me speak to you. So I offer up the following reflection as a means to help name some practical implications. In other words, to identify what's working or what can possibly work in schools and what it might look like to address his various questions that at first take seem unbelievably unattainable to even begin to answer. So I come to you as a companion in this imperfect and often perilous but hope-inspiring and amazing journey that we call Ignatian education. First, Chris urges us to empower students to use their imaginations and to think deeply, to really be about that work in our everyday. We begin by creating a learning culture, and I feel very, very strongly about this. I'm in charge of curriculum and instruction, and I say that loosely. I create conditions under which really amazingly competent, bright, skilled, and loving individuals do great work on behalf of students and families. So I believe that our first and primary responsibility is to create a learning culture for adults in our schools, whereby we are called upon to use our God-given imaginations and to think differently. That as we go to work as educators, we're learning. It's not just a place for students to learn. It is a learning culture that is open to possibilities, regardless of our fear. Sometimes we're afraid of kids. Sometimes we're afraid we don't know our content as well as we should. It's a culture that invites people to take risks and to refrain from saying, no, that's not how we've done it, and instead contemplate the answer to what if and how might, and let's just imagine what that could look like and what the possibilities are. Professional development and evaluation programs are fluid and not stagnant. They're informed by the people who are going to be most impacted by them. Their aim is to create conditions under which adults are empowered to continually examine the purpose of the work. Why are we here? Why are we doing this? And to dive deeply into curriculum, assessment, and instructional delivery that draws students into their own learning and gives them reasons to want to be there. And at the end of the day, ultimately invites kids to own it. Teachers are encouraged to wrestle with why we make the decisions that we do and to constantly be pursuing the answers to so what, why does this matter outside the walls of our classroom and our school? To always pose the who cares and to always answer and be in pursuant of answering the now what? How is what we do today going to make a difference? We welcome adults to take risks, and I think I mentioned that already, take risks, to be uncertain and not to have the answers and not to have to go before children and pretend to know everything, that we're not the Wizard of Oz, that in fact we're learners walking alongside and just barely in front of students. Administration has a responsibility to create an adult learning culture that directly mirrors the same student learning culture which we desire to foster in our classrooms, student life, pastoral, work study, and athletics. It is our responsibility to align the two worlds of learning and their cultures the adult and the student. The second question, Chris poses that of passing on our own faith to our students. And when I was reading his work earlier, it just took my breath away. I thought, I don't even know where to begin. And to me, and through my observation, it looks like this. It looks like showing up every day, being present to what is before us, is beautiful and is ugly, and being present to what's going to possibly happen. And as all of you know, you plan for one thing and another thing happens. But to not be afraid, and to lean in to not that which is ideal, but that is which is real. And it means being fearless in our love for our students, that if we do nothing else, we show up in love. Even when they don't turn in their homework, even when they disappoint us, when they roll in and say, what are we going to be learning today? And you've been up planning all night. When they fail to meet our expectations and our potential, when they're selfish, when they're forgetful, and some days they're just even unkind. But God is in all things, and those people before us are no different. They are those who have been placed before us, and over whom we have great influence, because at the end of the day, they look to us to do the right thing. And in my estimation, this work is sacred, every day, day in, day out. Additionally, our faith is passed along when we care for ourselves, when we tend to our own health, both physically and mentally and spiritually, when we tend to our relationships with one another and with the divine. Being a martyr for the cause and living life out of balance doesn't encourage students to believe in what we do. In fact, I've observed that our imbalance may serve as a cautionary tale of educators in how not to live. Are we well-rounded people who have robust lives outside of school? Finally, we simply show up as our authentic selves, warts and all, saved by and restored by God's grace and mercy. This is a humble craft. In Kairos fashion, our life graph tells us the story of consolation and desolation and how God loves us all along the way. And it offers us an invitation to love kids all along the way in their desolation and consolation. Are our students aware that imperfection is not attainable? And most importantly, are we? 3, Chris nudges us, even pushes us to assist students to make choices for themselves that are life-giving, not life-destroying. If this is an imperative, then we must offer choice within our correct curriculum and our lesson design. We must not be afraid. We must ask students what they wonder, what they want to learn, what interests them, what concerns them, what inspires them, what they would like to read, what they would like to talk about, what they would like to explore. We must teach students to make choices by giving them ample opportunities to choose, day in, day out, all through our curriculum. They will not learn by adults talking at them and telling them what to do. They must experience it. We model for them how to make choices and what informs our own decision-making. We help guide their decision-making by providing the scaffolding and guidance necessary and ongoing feedback. We offer them the ability to peer behind the curtain and see with real honesty that good decisions are sometimes really hard to make. We need to continually unpack the process and let students peer behind the curtain to really see how we go about making decisions and what it means to deliberate and how the examine plays into it and what does discernment really look like and what do I do? Do I run a cost-benefit analysis? Who do I talk to? With whom do I confer? If they don't get to practice with us and get our feedback, I do wonder, then where do they get it? Where do they have the opportunity to practice good choices, or the making of good choices and good decisions? Chris's fourth question asked us to help students encounter the concrete and real world around them. And as a school community, this translates into really encountering, and again, in my estimation, the concrete and real world of our students. It calls us to be in solidarity with them and in their realities, with their suffering, with their fears, with their poverty, their marginalization, their gifts, their race, their age, their class, their orientation. This means leaning in, knowing each student's strengths and challenges, listening and really listening, and avoiding the need to talk, which is, I think, often what we tend to do. In the absence of knowing what else to do, we talk at children. At Arupe, knowing students well, we refer to it as being the student of the student. Imagine a practice that places listening over talking. Imagine a classroom where students are doing most of the work, where students are constructing meaning, where students are doing the talking, and we as adults are leaning in and listening. Because what I know is that most often students tell us everything we need to know. In addition, I can't help but wonder if care were one of the goals of our courses. Explicit goals, right up there with standards. For our courses, for our professional development, and for our service learning programs. Then what change for the better might take place if it weren't the hidden curriculum, but it was the explicit curriculum? Pedro Arupe calls us to be men and women for others. And to me, and of course we use this a lot at Arupe, we refer back to him very frequently. And I wrestle with that. What does that really mean? To be men and women for others. And to me, this means to deeply care. To be so deeply invested that when my peer at school suffers, I suffer. When they're happy, I'm happy. To care despite my ignorance, my fear, and my shame. This care transfers to that of all living things, including our precious earth. And I do believe that the more kids learn to care about themselves and to really love themselves, then to care, then out of that stems the care for one another, and then their community, and then the earth, and all of humanity. It starts with them. And finally, and in the Ignatian tradition, we are asked to consider the question of now what? And where do we go from here? And this is where my throat constricts. And I think, where do I go? This isn't very simple. This all sounded really great. But now I have to do something. So I imagine that in this room there are 450 plus notions of how to answer this question. And for me at Arupe Jesuit, where at times the task seems insurmountable, there are days that it looks impossible to do what we do. But this is what it looks like, and I want you to just bear with me. First of all, we breathe. So would you breathe? And then I want you to look around and just note that we're all in this together. So turn to your neighbor and say, we're all in this together. The second thing that seems doable is to acknowledge that good is underway. In fact, the force, this is a call out for Jeff Howard, the force with a is with us. And in this case, the force with a capital F. Look around and see the fingerprints of God. He is around, all around us. He's everywhere. And then the third thing is to never tire in providing students love. I think of the ultimate default when we don't exactly know what to do around classroom management, and we've got this thing called informal assessment, and we are trying to meet standards, and we're trying to get kids prepped for college. And at the end of the day, I just think, are we loving them? Do they feel loved? That's the prelude to any other thing that we're going to offer up in our teaching and learning. Love, and then love some more, and then love a little more after that. And the most important part is that they needn't love you back. And the fourth thing I believe that we should ask students to wrestle with meaningful work, that school should be a very relevant place to be. They should wrestle with the hard stuff. They should inquire. They should have the ability to not know. They should be able to sit with uncertainty, just as we should. It seems that the more we draw them into the messiness of learning and living, the further away they will move from superficiality. I think kids go where they're stimulated and where they think things might be fun. That's what school should be. So there's just a few ramblings in response to Chris's amazing work and amazing thinking and those who have gone before him. We stand on the shoulders of giants. So God bless you, my fellow journeymen and women, and thank you for sharing with me this morning.